From where Joel just found out he beat me at picks again in week number 8. Of course, we did not have podcast last week as I was out officiating a wedding for Zach, who's been on the podcast with us a couple of times, and then got sick for about a week. So just getting over it. So if you hear me all of a sudden start coughing, I apologize in advance. I am flying Ryan Gokers along with
Tampa Motormouth Joel Verlin here. Definitely coughing and hacking would be the generic sponsor of the podcast tonight.
Yeah, but Joel has a 13 game lead in the pick'em.
I honestly have no idea how, because especially after you had that week where, let's see, San Francisco loses. What? Yeah, the Chiefs and with Patrick Mahomes with one of his worst games of his career. Yeah, granted, he did have the flu and the weather absolutely stopped, but still, I can imagine how many managers. Yeah, I've got Pat Mahomes. This week is in the bag. Not so much.
He wasn't good 2 weeks ago against Denver, and he was not good last week in the rematch in Denver as Denver
But
breaks a 16-game losing streak to the
just
Chiefs.
just a thought to Denver when you're trolling the world champs. Granted, you do beat them, but you might not want to play Taylor Swift music after you win, as the Chiefs are leaving the field when you have that record. Just saying.
Yeah, especially not shake it off. You don't want them to shake it off. You want them to own it and feel bad. And I'm a Dolphins fan. And I want them to feel shame and misery at least for one more week.
Yeah, because did you see somebody on Sleeper, which wonderful. There were two photo changes of profiles where you had, of course, Travis Kelsey had the picture changed with Taylor Swift,
Yep.
and then the other one where after the bad game somebody changed Patrick Mahomes' face and put Kermit the Frog on it.
There's several others actually. Bijan Robinson is a bottle of mustard. Puka Nakua is Pikachu. Jalen Waddle is a penguin.
Puka Puka Puka.
Yeah, Pikachu. Yeah, a penguin for Jalen Waddle. Of course, that makes some sense as well. And I think there was one more. Somebody was kind enough to find all of these, but maybe I'm not in mind. Anyways, yeah, Sleep having a little bit of fun at some players. Oh, I'm on Ross St. Brown going into the Sphinx, as he is the Egyptian sun god. Anyways,
Yeah, because that was you had a fairly awful Monday night football game that you were just wondering, the field goal, field goal, field goal. Then all of a sudden, Detroit finally remembered how to score. And then pretty much the only scoring by the Raiders was done by the defense.
yeah, Raiders are not a good team, and they no longer have their head coach, GM, or starting quarterback as a result, as Josh McDaniels has been fired.
Well, it wasn't the starting quarterback, was it the offensive coach that was fired?
Offensive coordinator and Jimmy Garoppolo got benched.
Oh,
They're going to be starting Aiden O'Connell.
ooh,
So, yeah, he gone. There's a meme going around that apparently Josh McDaniels takes Halloween really, really seriously. He came into the office the day after the loss to Detroit, dressed up as Mr. Davis, the owner of the Las Vegas Raiders. At first, he took it in stride, but then he got his favorite P.F. Chang, shared dinner with the former head coach, and then in the fortune cookie, it said, "You're fired, hotshot." I don't know if that's true. I choose to believe he went to his door dressed as the head coach of the Raiders and went, "Hey, who am I?" He's like, "You're me." He's like, "Nope, I'm the head coach, and that's not you." Then ran away with a big bowl of candy. But
well,
that's just how my brain works.
There's also a meme now saying that the Raiders are paying both now John Gruden and now Josh McDaniels $80 million to not coach the team. Good job, Raiders.
Great planning.
Yeah, that's you just you're going, okay, someone is getting paid to do this.
Yeah. All right, let's go into week number 8. And we'll start with a game I was not allowed to watch because it was the same day as the wedding, and I had to focus on wedding-related things after the wedding. Tampa Bay and Buffalo. The Bills win 24-18. Another not overly impressive game by the Buffalo Bills. Tampa, though, had a chance to win this late on a Hail Mary. Does not get it done. Buffalo moves to 5-3, and the Bucks fall to 3-4.
Yeah, because this one, everything was pretty much about Josh Allen being Josh Allen, even with the shoulder. Dalton Kincaid definitely stepping up. Oh, and if you were like me in one of the leagues that you benched Chris Godwin because you weren't sure of the matchup, you were definitely kicking yourself big time. And oh yeah, just Mike Evans definitely vanished for the most part in this game.
Did get a
And
touchdown.
yeah, he did. He did so saved his fantasy night, but just yeah, and you're just wondering what's going on with Cade Otton. Not that he's one that tight end that you probably pick up, and unless you really, really need one because of a bye or injuries. And oh, what happened to Stephon Diggs?
Diggs down night. Gabe Davis, of course, had a touchdown pass. He and Chris Godwin both on my bench in the same league for different options in the Dynasty League. So
You made me feel better because I thought I was the only one that looked at the matchup. So let me not start Godwin and aha.
well, I mean, it is a dynasty league, so usually you have some better options in a dynasty league. Playing Hollywood Brown, Deontay Johnson, and Amari Cooper over Godwin, who hadn't had a touchdown before that game, and Gabe Davis, who is very touchdown dependent. Gabe Davis no longer on my roster in that league. Trade him today for a second round pick.
He's boomer bust anyway.
He is. I trade him for what's going to probably be 201 in next year's rookie draft, so I'll take my chances there. And we're going to move on to Sunday, where the Panthers get off the schneid. They win their first game of the season, hence the black and baby blue I am wearing today, with a 15-13 turd of a win over the Houston Texans. CJ Stroud, probably his worst game in his young career. Damian Pierce with an injury moving forward. Miles Sanders, 2 carries in the entire game. If you drafted him in fantasy, you're probably not very happy about it. And Adam Thielen continues to be very, very good. But the Panthers off the schneid and in that sorry NFC South division, still somewhat, somehow alive.
Yeah, because you're looking at this game. Definitely Jonathan Mingo, somebody you might want to hang on to just down the road. If you started him hoping for anything, DJ Chark was just an absolute disaster. And this game, just not really much of anything from anybody. I mean, CJ Stroud, if you picked him up, he's competent on the field, but just not really sexy as far as fantasy goes. And you're just wondering what's going on with that whole Texans O line. And is it Singletary? Is it Pierce? What's going on? What's happening is Stroud did have the touchdown, but not a whole lot more than 140 yards. So, like I said, not exactly overly sexy in fantasy, but competent when it comes to the field.
Yeah, not much from this game was exciting. Not really a game to. But the Texans fall to 3-4, and the Panthers are on the board with their first win. Next up, Dallas 43-20 over the Rams. The big story coming out of this one is an injury to Matthew Stafford's throwing thumb. We'll see what he is going to be doing in terms of his availability. Not expected to go on IR, but expected to possibly miss at least a game or two. The Cowboys offense, CeeDee Lamb finally looked like Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb are supposed to look. Dominant in this one. Defensive touchdown once again. And the Rams they're not an elite team. We all knew that coming into the season. But the Cowboys showed they're an echelon above, moving to 5-2 with the Rams, go to 3-5.
Yeah, unlike that last game, that not much to talk about. Yeah, CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott, as you said, definitely finally looking like why you picked them both in the draft. Over 300 yards for passing for Dak Prescott, and finally pass better for 150 yards on the day, and two touchdowns for Mr. CD Cash. That CD finally, and Dallas DST. So not too shabby. I mean, having some definite energy, especially with a pick six, safety, and 2 sackaroonies adding up for the 3 yuck. Oh, sadly, people, you all probably had some shares of somewhere in fantasy for the Waz Cooper Cup. Oh my good God, just back-to-back off games for the number 1 wide receiver. Targets were there, just yeesh. Not so much for the coverage. Puka not coming off of the highlight game, only able to manage just 3 reception for 43 yards. Yeah, and Tony Pollard, a little bit harsh to include somebody who usually has a lot of yards per catch, but just you're trying to figure out what's going on with this production this
Offense is
year.
bad.
Just lots of questions.
Yeah, the Dallas offense isn't what it was last year when they had a competent offensive coordinator. It was one of the slowest offenses, and it's really hurt Tony Pollard, another person in that same dynasty league I traded away in the last week, along with someone in the next game. Jordan Love traded away. Yeah,
Oh my
going
good
going to
God.
the future. The headline from the Packers Vikings game was not the result. It was an injury to Kirk Cousins,
boy.
a torn Achilles in the 24-10 Vikings win. The Vikings do even their record at 4-4 as the Packers fall to 2-5, but the Vikings, their season now turns to Joshua Dobbs,
Who
most
won't
likely
be
the time.
starting this week though. So
Won't be starting this week as it'll be a rookie, last name of Hall. Probably only going to get the 1 week of start while Dobbs tries to learn the offense. Dobbs does have an aeroscience rocket scientist degree, so
as a
he'll
matter
pick
of
up the
fact,
offense
he
quickly.
is a rocket scientist.
Yeah, an aerospace engineer. He'll pick up the offense fairly quickly. He should be starting in week number 10, but for next week, not going to be Dobbs. Dobbs was the Cardinals quarterback until he was traded on the deadline day, which fuels the speculation about Kyler Murray coming into this week, but we'll get to that in a little bit. But the Vikings, they do get the win, but overall, it's one of those win the battle, possibly lose the war, with Kirk Cousins going down.
Yeah, because the ups definitely were Kirk Cousins. He played great. Unfortunately, before the injury with turnover-free football, but man, his season did not end on this high note. Just that's not the way you want, because you knew when it was an Achilles, you're going, party is over for at least for Captain Kirk. And how about the Vikings defense? They only allowed 10 points and close out the game at the end. You definitely have to be thinking they are slowly turning legit. And yeah, the downers, just Jordan Love, if you are trying to have him be your main man as your fantasy quarterback, he was kept in check all day long, and like Joe Namath, he was struggling. So ugh. And Jari Alexander getting beat all day long by Jordan Addison, and gave up the touchdown pass that went to Addison, and not a good look for one of the league's highest paid cornerbacks by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, the Packers are bad. They are 2-5, and it doesn't look like it's going to get any better. Both running backs pretty much on a milk carton. These wide receivers are not getting separation. Jordan Love just, I don't know if it's he's not the answer or if the offense around him is just not good enough. But
Jordan Love is
yeah. All
Sorry.
right, next up, the Saints 38-27 win over the Indianapolis Colts. It finally looked like a coherent offense in New Orleans with Alvin Kamara leading the way, which is what you should do. Put your best player in the best position to win. The Colts, though, the defense, it looks like one to target against fantasy offenses as they have allowed massive point games. But the good news is Jonathan Taylor looked very good for the first half of this game, then left for what they are calling a non-existent ankle injury, basically, but didn't play as much in the second half. But, well, you fall behind, you can't run the ball as much. Anyways, but the Saints, 4-4, tied for first in the NFC South.
Yeah, the Saints just seem inclined to continue making Kamara the focus of the offense, as he has just been a literal plug and play after the 3-game suspension, literally not missing a beat. How about Josh Downs, third-round rookie, just won't stop, continues to be heavily involved in the offense. His playmaking ability is to break free from coverage, and just he seems to be a very focal point for the Indianapolis Colts. And Jonathan Taylor, just he's seen his workload increase, but you have to wonder about what's going on and why they didn't have him do the second half. And the major downer from this game, I know you definitely have him because you traded for him from me. Chris Olave is just a hard Sitch, what is going on for just the young man who seemed to have such a promising future? And is it the toe? Is it something else? Just what's going on with this wide receiver in New Orleans?
Just doesn't look like he's on the same page with Derek Carr quite yet. The injury is not helping things, but he's getting in a lot of targets. Eventually, it's got to get a little bit better. It looks like this offense is starting to round into form, so hopefully Olave can round into form with it in the next few weeks. Next up, a receiver that does not need to round into form because he cracked 1,000 yards on the season already in week number 8, and that is Tyreek Hill and the Miami Dolphins with a 31-17 win over the New England Patriots as they sweep the season series from their former masters in the New England Patriots. Dolphins did not get the running game going as heavily as you would think they would, but then again, they torched the Patriots the first time. Tyreek Hill couldn't get going this one. Tyreek got the best of the Patriots. Jalen Waddle got involved. It was really good to see the Dolphins kind of spread the ball out to both wide receivers. And the Patriots just, after that big win against Buffalo, I think they came in thinking maybe we've righted the ship. Not so much. As Bill Belichick, after getting win number 300, will stay there for at least one more week.
Yeah, you definitely have to like Miami's big three. Tua, Tyreek, and Jalen just absolutely lit up the Patriots' ailing secondary as you just kept hearing the Miami touchdown song over and over and over again. Even with Mr. Duggar getting an interception from Tua early, giving the Pats fans a little bit of faint hope, but yeah, not so much. And yeah, the Downers. All of the RBs were just once again struggling as Raheem Mostert found the end zone, but to salvage an otherwise lackluster effort by both groups. Pretty much every single New England receiver other than Demario Douglas just and definitely another for Mac Jones. Oh my good God.
Yeah. This Dolphins defense is not known for being ball hawking or really shut down, but they are getting healthier. They did get Jalen Ramsey back for this game against New England, and it looks like they're getting Javon Holland and Xavier Howard back for the game next week in Frankfurt, Germany against the Kansas City Chiefs. So the Dolphins' offensive line looks like it's starting to get a little more healthy. So maybe the Dolphins are getting healthier. Achane can come back next game, not next week because they're on bye, but next game in week number 11. So maybe the Dolphins are a 6-2 team that's on the mend. So keep an eye on them going forward as they are tied for first in the AFC with a 6-2 record. Next up, oh boy, this was hard to watch. Before Tyrod Taylor got hurt, 13-10 in overtime because it was so good. Why not have a few more minutes of overtime football with it?
Because we needed more torture of this game. We needed more. Oh my good
Joel,
God.
did you ever think you would have more passing yards than an NFL football team? Because you did this weekend with a grand total of 0.
To give you a snapshot of how absolutely spectacular this game was, at one point, the Giants' leading pass rusher was Darren Waller at -4 yards, and he left with an injury.
He ended up leading the way with 4 total yards receiving as the Giants went for -7.
Negative usually isn't good, I think, right?
No, negative is negative. The Giants did lose Tyrod Taylor in this game, which led to Don't Call Me Danny DeVito coming in and being hot garbage. A missed kick late by Graham Gano that could have slammed the door for the Giants goes wide. Greg Zuerlein ties it at the gun for the Jets and then wins it in overtime. And a game truly as ugly as the stadium they play in New Jersey.
Yeah, as the ups were just pretty much all defense. That gives you an idea of how bad this game was. 4 down. Zach Wilson, he was bad. Again, he had a TD pass, but managed on a screen pass that Breece Hall somehow turned into a beautiful piece of running. Just Tyrod Taylor came out, had himself a very, very poor showing before leaving the game, thankfully, with an injury.
To the hospital, thankfully. went to the hospital because
He
he was bad.
just Saquon Barkley back-to-back downs that looked like a mirror image of each other, just trying to figure out what's going on. And you even had Graham Gano missing 2 field goal attempts today after missing 1 last week. This was just a game that you just sort of felt like Yakety Sax needed to be playing during the entire freaking game.
Yeah, and Graham Gano, I saw some kind of news break about him going in for surgery, I believe. Let me see if I can find that. But Graham Gano set to have surgery on his left knee, so that could have been a factor in those missed kicks. But yeah, he's gone for the rest of the season, and the Giants fans are not upset about it.
Yeah, so if you think that you're having a rough time in your fandom, there's the Giants this year, as Coach Dable is definitely paying in interest for that Coach of the Year award. Ooh,
Oh
boy.
yeah. Well, you look at someone like Matt Nagy was the coach of the year, had a great first season. Then they played better teams, caught up with them, and they never recaptured that magic again. And we move on to the Jaguars 20-10 win over the Pittsburgh Steelers. As Travis Etienne has 7 touchdowns in the last 4 games, has been really pacing this offense as the Jags won 6 in a row after losing back-to-back games to open the season. The Steelers fall to 4-3 and are still very competitive in the AFC North. But Kenny Pickett, with a rib injury, expected to play tonight against the Titans. But we saw last year Justin Herbert have a rib injury for most of the season. It didn't help him at all. So I imagine Kenny Pickett not being quite the player Justin Herbert is, that's not going to help him either. But the Jaguars 6-2, tied for first in the AFC and leading the AFC South as the Steelers fall to 4-3.
Yeah, 3 up for this game. Definitely, you mentioned him, Travis Etienne. He was the best player on the field, and once again proved to be the difference maker. 149 all-purpose yards and the touchdown. Deontay Johnson has reclaimed his wide receiver 1 status with the team with 8 receptions and 85 yards with a 33% target share. Key thing if you're going, well, I don't know, should I drop him? No. Trevor Lawrence. Although Trevor Lawrence has been a bit of a letdown for fantasy managers this season, he definitely has had 5 straight wins, including 2 in London, and the Jaguars are performing well enough as a team to continue to go threat, get to the playoffs, and maybe even go deep in the playoffs. The two was you might have had one of these 2 players and some shares of them on a team somewhere. Oh my good God, Najee Harris again. Same story. It's the same old song with the different beat that just goes on. Oh my God. Najee is the starter of this team, but was once again outperformed by Jalen freaking Warren and was receiving 0 help from the freaking offensive line. And yeah, George Pickens, although he was able to score the lone Steelers touchdown on his only catch, he was clear the WR2 today with Deontay Johnson dominating targets. Yeah, so 3 up, but 2 definitely wins.
I don't have a lot of either of those guys, fortunately. Najee Harris had 1 share, and he was benched because he's been bad. But yeah, it's a tough proposition if you do have a good number of those players, because you want to play your best guys, and they should be some of your best guys, but they're not.
How the Steelers continue to win with this mind-numbing offense is just boggles the mind.
It does, and I really don't know if it's ever going to get any better looking in the near term, because I don't think Kenny Pickett's the answer. But we'll move on to a team that may have found the answer at quarterback, and I'm not talking about Desmond Ridder and Tyler Heineke. The Tennessee Titans, 28-23 win, of course, on the back of Will Levis, not Derrick Henry. No, Will Levis, 4 touchdown passes in his NFL debut, reviving DeAndre Hopkins' fantasy relevance, who had 3 touchdowns. The Atlanta Falcons fall to 4-4 as the Titans go to 3-4, and I believe have at least some optimism that they might have gotten a steal at quarterback later in the draft with Will Levis, Mr. Banana Peel Eater.
And don't forget mayonnaise either. You
might
have heard
of coffee and banana peels on the banana.
Yeah,
dude.
Yeah, definitely the 3 ups. Will Levis, Mr. Mayonnaise himself, 4 freaking touchdowns. Now that's not going to happen every week, but
No.
somebody grabbed him at least for one of your fantasy teams, especially for having Matthew Stafford.
Hey, I
Worthy.
had Matthew Stafford and Brock Purdy in the 16-teamer. I spent 50 fab when I had to spend one, but 50 fab on Will Levis because I needed a quarterback for this week.
Yeah, the Titans offense just all of a sudden DeAndre Hopkins and Derrick Henry just all of a sudden being able to push the ball down the field. Hey, when you got a quarterback who can do something, that helps everything. And
Mhm.
oh boy, yeah. So just the Drake London injury, especially after his good week, just fantasy managers are just have to be hitting their heads against the wall. Hopefully not literally, but definitely mentally. As you're going, oh right, we're ready for it. And what do you mean he's injured? And
Yeah.
boy, just the downers. Of course, yeah, Tyler Algier just after averaging 17 carries over the last 3 games, he had only 8 carries. So just the Falcons' play calling just absolutely mind-boggling. Of course, the Falcons' pass rush just he had Will Levis had all freaking day to just throw the ball. It was just like the game was on easy mode. And Jonnu Smith, if Heineke is the starter, then that means Smith won't be heavily involved
Yep.
in the offense. So if you picked him up thinking, hey, just remember it's an Arthur Smith team, and we have absolutely literally no idea what the heck's going on. And I'm curious, did you have any Bijan Robinson?
I have one share. I wasn't willing to pay in the first round for a lot of things. I have one 8-0 team though, and that was where I drafted Bijan Robinson. So maybe I was wrong in that thinking, even though
Yeah,
the rest of that team's just loaded.
because you had from the Buccaneers game the previous week that whole interesting story with Bijan. That all of a sudden everybody was wondering where he was, and at halftime, why haven't we seen any? Luckily, he had more usage of Bijan this week, but last week he was non-existent. By halftime, all of social media was what was going on. Arthur Smith, of course, with that, well, he wasn't really feeling himself, and then you had the Bijan with the whole headache thing after. Then you had the NFL launching the investigation. I don't really think anything happened because I didn't see anything like anybody was fined or anything because it's the NFL. They're not going to be like the NCAA and ask you to vacate a win. You just imagine what that would do to some of the crazy standings. But it was all because of the criticism of why didn't Arthur Smith put down that Robinson had some kind of illness and they weren't going to use him optimally a part of the offense as if he was feeling okay. And I think that was some definite criticism.
Yeah, that was the week before. He was more involved this week at least, but definitely was a weird situation. Nothing came out of it. We'll move on. Eagles, the only 7-1 team after a 38-31 win over the Washington Commanders. Commanders put up another good fight against the Eagles, but fall short. Sam Howell was the quarterback one on the week in week number 8, but Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown looks like a duo that is not able to be stopped. Devonta Smith finally looked like a capable receiver, which will probably go back to being not that way in the next few weeks. But yeah, the Eagles 7-1, first place in the NFL. They haven't even looked their best yet, so maybe a scary team on the horizon.
Yeah, ups for this game definitely. The two quarterbacks Hurts, just monster performance, even with a leg injury and the knee brace. Sam Howell, of course, looking he's looking freaking invincible behind that Commander's offensive line. You don't know whatever it is they're chugging down, but keep chugging down more of it. And anybody who can hold up to the Eagles like they can, just oh man, they're doing well. And Terry Scary again found the end zone this week while also replicating his strong performance from weeks prior. So his target share worthy of a WR1. And yeah, if you started him, you definitely like seeing that. The West for this week, Dallas Goddard, slow day at the office for Goddard, who saw teammate A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith pretty much take all of the strong fantasy performance. You were definitely bummed out if you started Brian Robinson Jr. He terrific as a runner, but just not the explosive over 5 yards per carry against the Seagulls. So start him is probably a lot of whans and just Kenneth Gainwell, just the Eagles, both of the Eagles running backs struggling, and yeah, just not a good day on the ground.
Yeah, Washington is not getting it done as much as you would like them to, but we move on. This is why Joel is ahead in the standings, by the way. You picked Seattle over Cleveland, and they got a last-second touchdown to win this game, 24-20. As the Seahawks move to 5-2, leading the NFC West, and the Browns fall to 4-3. All of that being said, this was a game the Browns could have won again behind PJ Walker, but the Seahawks are showing a lot more grit than we thought we would see from them. And they started the season with a very bad loss to the Rams. And we kind of thought, okay, last season was a mirage, and all of a sudden, the number 2 seed in the NFC at 5-2, getting it done all over the field.
Yeah, definitely ups from this game. David Njoku, he is becoming an increased focal point of the offense. Clearly, one of Cleveland's most dangerous threats. Is they're just doing a better job of getting the ball in his hands in an advantage situation. Geno Smith, despite his box score stats, not dropping any jaws. This being just one of his better games, coming away. You just came away being impressed by Geno, and from maybe not only from a fantasy perspective, but he is able to continue getting these sets up against teams like the Browns, and then just with that top defense, you should have no problem carving up lesser squads. And Kareem Hunt, even though he didn't significantly outtouch the other Brown running back, he was trusted at the highest leverage situation of goal line work and third downs, and excelled in pass protection. These things, as well as a familiarity with their system, definitely going to ensue that Kareem Hunt is somebody that you might want to keep around. And the went was, after all the hype, JSN just saw his target share drop with the return, of course, of DK Metcalf. And it's just operating behind Metcalf as well as Tyler Lockett. Jerome Ford just partially due to injury. Ford saw the least touches of the 3 Brown running backs, and that definitely doesn't help you in fantasy. And I don't think anybody was really expecting much from Elijah Moore, but yeah, I think he can almost be safely thrown out of the window between low targets and just lack of chemistry with PJ Walker. You might be seeing less and more.
Yeah, I would say hold on until Deshaun Watson comes back, especially in deeper leagues.
Whenever that's going to be.
He is practicing. We'll see. Well, who knows at this point? He's got no incentives to rush back. His contract is fully
They only
guaranteed,
paid him $230 million. No biggie.
Fully guaranteed, whether he plays or not. All right, next up, the Ravens 31-24 win over the Arizona Cardinals. The Ravens 6-2, a 4-way tie on the top of the AFC. The Cardinals, again, good fight, but not good enough. The Ravens got it done on the ground with Gus Edwards having 3 rushing touchdowns. Lamar Jackson, very good on the day, not so good for fantasy, but Mark Andrews picked up a lot of slack, and Zay Flowers looked good as well. Joshua Dobbs ends his Cardinals career at 1-7, but was not the problem by any stretch of the imagination. He goes on to Minnesota and hopes to keep them going towards the playoffs. But the Cardinals didn't expect to be a good team. Looks like they're going to have James Conner back next week, which will help them immensely. And the return of Kyler Murray, not necessarily this week. He does not have an injury designation for this game, but if he is not active for this game, that's fine. But he has to be activated for the next game, or he will go on the season-ending IR per the temporary IR rules. So that'll be something to keep an eye on. But Joel, how do you feel on this one?
Yeah, with this one, when it come to a running back, especially the Ravens, you definitely wanted Gus the Bus as opposed to Justice Hill. Justice Hill only had 15 yards on the ground, 40 yards in the air, but oh man, everything was about Gus the Bus. 3 touchdowns, 80 yards, 2 targets, 2 receptions, 14 yards, 1 fumble recovered. He was definitely the fantasy stud running back that you wanted out of either team this day, as you're just probably going him again.
Yeah. All right, we're going to move on to a game we all saw coming. A game I actually did call my shot prior to, but didn't make the pick this way. Broncos 24-9 winners over the Kansas City Chiefs. Not a great day for Russell Wilson. Did have 3 touchdowns. Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton both finding the end zone along with Javonte Williams. The 24-9 win over the Chiefs is their first win since 2015, which means there are third graders who have seen the first ever win in their lifetime by the Denver Broncos over the Kansas City Chiefs. Travis Kelce, not his best game. Pat Mahomes, yes, he had the flu, but we've seen other great athletes overcome the flu and play well. This Denver defense, maybe they're starting to figure it out, but they shut the Kansas City Chiefs offense down. Last time they played 2 weeks prior to this, they get the job done. They're now 3-5. If you take out that 70-point game they gave up to Miami, this is a middle-of-the-road defense. Maybe it was just an anomaly. Maybe they just had to get on the same page. But the Broncos, maybe not as bad as we thought.
Yeah, because of the 2 ups from this game, definitely Denver's defense. They played a superb game and forced 4 turnovers. I'm sure we all saw this one coming, right? Yeah, not. And then how about Javonte Williams carried 27 times, caught a touchdown pass to boot, and helped keep the clock running and the chains moving, and Patrick Mahomes off the field. And you know how dangerous he is, even with the flu. The bummers, of course, Patrick Mahomes' first bummer. He arguably played the worst game as a professional, both in reality and in fantasy. And it was also his first loss against the Broncos in his career. And Denver's third down offense, it's almost that they just tell their offensive line, don't bother trying to block on 3rd and long because, just Russell will work the angle, and then Russell doesn't cook much. So, yeah, just reminding you why that Denver Broncos record is why it is. But somehow they inexplicably beat the Kansas City Chiefs for only their second loss of the year.
I think Denver might finally be bearing fruit on the Sean Payton hire. And I think they're getting things going in the right direction. This could be a team. I don't think it's a playoff team. I don't think it's going to be a team we're in the hunt, really. Anybody's
are they better than are they better than the Raiders?
Oh yeah, they're better than the Raiders. I think with Zach Wilson, they're better than the Jets, who are 4-3.
They're better.
I could see them being better than the Steelers. I could see them being better than a couple teams that
better than the Packers. Better than the Packers.
Oh, very easily. I'm just looking at the AFC where you've got some teams that are the Chargers. I'd think they're on par with the Chargers that have been very inconsistent. I would say they're probably a little less than the Browns, a little less than right around the Titans, the Steelers. There's a lot of teams in the AFC that are kind of in the middle of the pack, and well, they're at least in that group, not a step behind like we thought they were after the Dolphins game. All right, next up, the Bengals, 31-17 win over the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers have lost 3 games in a row. The Bengals finally look like Cincinnati. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon, all firing on all cylinders. Maybe it just took Joe Burrow getting healthy. It looks like his calf is 100% recovered. And that's a bad thing for the rest of the AFC, but they did spot them some games. So teams like Miami, Kansas City, Baltimore, and Jacksonville, who are all 6-2, keep going, because if you falter a little bit, the Bengals can catch you. But another win for the Bengals, 4-3. Still got some work to do to catch the Ravens in the division, but the Niners, 5-3, have dropped to first place in the NFC West.
Yeah, just CMC doing CMC stuff as ever since putting on the 49ers uniform, he just keeps getting better and better and better. And Brandon Ayuk in the middle of the best season of his career. He just needs to just continue to lead the 49ers at targets the rate until the end of the season. T. Higgins, he sometimes tends to get overshadowed by the rest of the offense. He's slowly making the big plays, and any concerns about his performance earlier in the season should be shut down because he's starting to return to his former self. And even had Tyler Boyd having a good day. So the only down, I think, out of fantasy could be Elijah Mitchell, as falls into vintage what we saw. Better than the box scored looks, but I just don't think there's enough of him a role on the team. Is he rosterable?
No, not. I mean, dynasty, yes, and super deep 32 team leagues, yes. But if you're counting on the backup to Christian McCaffrey, you're counting on injury, and that's not something you want to be playing your roster based off of. All right, next up, another Sunday night dud. As the
We've
Chargers
been
win
waiting all
30-13.
day for a actual football game, and even when it started, we were still waiting for a
Yeah,
football
waiting
game.
all day for Sunday night. Why? I don't know. The Chargers win 30-13.
Waiting all
Um,
the Bears to actually freaking score.
I mean, they're playing with a backup quarterback and a bad offense. This game went exactly how we kind of thought it would. The Chargers are taking care of it. The Chargers go to 3-4 with the Chiefs loss. And they're probably not catching the Chiefs, but it at least helps things. The Bears lose, which keeps them behind the Packers, which is really all they care about this season, is being ahead of the Green Bay Packers at the end of the year in the standings. But they still stay behind them at 2-6. Eckler looked good. Keenan Allen not as good as you would have hoped, but Justin Herbert's been one of the best quarterbacks on the season, and the Bears still suck.
Yeah, because Austin Eckler just the beneficiary of a Chicago defense that didn't challenge him by literally throwing within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. That's how bad the Bears were. Justin Herbert didn't really force anything on the night and uh, took what was given to him, and that was a lot. It's the Bears, and Cole Kmet, looked to be fully in sync with Badgett. That's a little sliver of light, Badgett, excuse me, a little sliver of light for the Chicago Bears after just getting utterly drubbed by the Los Angeles Chargers. And Quentin Johnson had the most active night of his career and finished the skill set that people finally loved to see from the young man. The three went was Badgett. Yeah, still has a lot to learn. Yeah, had the week before is a little bit of a miracle, but uh, boy, Chargers sort of brought him back to life, back to reality. As Joshua Palmer nursing knee injury coming in the game, re-injured it at one point, but didn't let him knock it out. But that's definitely a concern going forward, especially if he's on one of your teams. And oh my good God, the Bears running backs, none of them did much of anything against a very tough running defense. And I'll tell you, out of most of the teams that week, if there's a team that needed to win badly, it was the Chargers after getting punked so many times by so many teams in prime time. Finally, they got a prime time win that day. It was desperately, desperately needed.
Chargers would have been the last place team in that division with a loss, and I think Brandon Staley would have been fired first. But they get the win. He survives at least another week or two. And we move on to Monday night, where the Raiders, after a 26-14 loss, do fire their head coach. We already talked about that. Davante Adams, one catch on a bunch of targets. Josh Jacobs not getting it done. Jimmy Garoppolo looked poor. And that's why, honestly, if you're a fantasy owner of any of those guys, you see a change at quarterback, you see a change at offensive coordinator and head coach, you have at least some hope. Maybe there's going to be some competent play calling at least. We'll see what Aiden O'Connell is, but it's not buried the lead. Jahmyr Gibbs, a breakout game. No David Montgomery, so we'll see how that role looks when he comes back. But 26-14 win for the Lions, who moved to 6-2. Latest they've been in first in the division in a very long time. Best record they've had in a very, very long time. And the Lions look like a legitimate team. Even though they were not 100% on, they still were dominant, never in doubt against the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah, because it was a little bit of an ugly start because you just had field goal for the Lions. But then all of a sudden they found their mojo and started getting in the end zone. And pretty much most of the offense came from the defense for the Raiders. And you better believe when Mark Davis is seeing this on prime time, that definitely had to motivate him to do something, as this game was bad.
Yeah, not a good look for the Raiders as they move on with a new head coach in fold. All right, that is the recap of week number 8. Let's go quickly to
Definitely
Thursday Night Football.
Definitely a lot of recaps there.
Yeah, Thursday Night Football is the Tennessee Titans going to Pittsburgh to play the Pittsburgh Steelers. Tennessee. There are some bye weeks this week. I don't know if you're Will Levis desperate in most leagues. I know in deep league, like I said, I have Brock Purdy and Matt Stafford both on buys. I'm taking the shot on Will Levis this week. Hopkins and Henry both going to be in your lineups. You can't put Hopkins on the bench after that big week last week. And Derrick Henry, one of his highest touch totals last week as well. For Pittsburgh, I think it's Deontay Johnson and maybe George Pickens and nobody else in this one. We'll see about Kenny Pickett, but Najee Harris, this is not a good matchup for him.
He's
Jaylen
on
Warren,
the milk carton. Najee Harris is on the milk carton lately anyway.
Yeah, not a good matchup for either one of them, and they have not been performing even in good matchups. So, Tennessee 4-3, Tennessee 3-4, Pittsburgh 4-3. A big game for both. If Tennessee can win this, get back to 500, and Will Levis looks good again. Maybe Tennessee is still that sneaky good team that can just make a run. Pittsburgh, though, with a win, 5-3, solidifies their position in the AFC. Who gets it done?
Oh, just a fugly game that it doesn't strike you immediately as this is one of those sexy games to start off, but Bucks and Bills didn't look sexy, and yet that game came down to the last play. If only Chris Godwin had turned his head around just a few seconds earlier, Bucks could have stolen one in New York, but alas and alack, that did not happen. And here we are with another ugly matchup. I think even uglier than Bucks and Bills go, and you're trying to figure out of both of these teams, a team you're trying to figure out how it is that they keep winning with that god-awful offense in the Pittsburgh Steelers, and another team that is just literally trying to find their offensive identity in themselves and trying to recapture some of the greatness back in the days when the Titans were actually feared. Which I'll just let you in a clue. It ain't 2023 that they're feared all that much. So you tend to look at this matchup. I think it comes down to I know Pittsburgh's record at home ain't all that great, but when you're looking at Tennessee's away record, that's even worse. So because of Tennessee's 0-3 record away from the barn, I can't love actually picking Matt Canada. I know I'm crazy, but as crazy as Will Levis was with the 4 touchdowns, he's not going to do that every week. That's the ceiling, not the floor or the middle. So I'm going to pick the Pittsburgh Steelers based on the fact that Tennessee tends not to do too well away from home.
Well, I'm going to say this. I'm taking Tennessee. You can look at the records above me and see which one's probably going to be right. It's probably not going to be me, but I'm going to take the Titans. I actually think Hopkins is the best wide receiver in this game. Derrick Henry is the best running back in this game. And I think Will Levis might be the best quarterback in this game. So I could see this being a game where two comparable, solid defenses go head to head, and the better offense just gets it done. And I think that happens to be Tennessee. I mean, Matt Canada and the Pittsburgh Steelers offense is ranked 32nd in the league in pretty much every statistical category. So I'm going to take the better offense, but I think both defenses are very comparable. Because Fitzpatrick got hurt for the Steelers defense last week. That secondary is something you can beat. And we saw Will Levis able to throw the ball downfield in ways Ryan Tannehill wasn't able to do. Maybe Will Levis is the real deal. Maybe a week of film is enough to get him figured out. But I'm going to rely on the fact that he's better than we expected, and he's going to get the job done tonight against the Pittsburgh Steelers. All right, with that, let's go to final thoughts with Joel.
Well, final thoughts is if I can go to the diamond.
Okay.
My final thought says the World Series was wrapped up fairly easily by the, well, if you're going to lose, at least we lost.
We lost to the champs.
At least, but it had to have been a tough week for one Evan Longoria on the Diamondbacks, as for the second time in his career, just like in 2008 after the Rays, inexplicable leap to World Series to lose to the Philadelphia Phillies after beating the Washington Red Sox. I'm going into an alternate universe here after beating the Boston Red Sox. Yeah, he has to deal with it again in 2023, going with the Arizona Diamondbacks. I'm sure there are a whole bunch of people who are thinking, let's cheer for the Diamondbacks. Maybe Longo can finally get a ring. And then they run into the buzzsaw known as the Texas Rangers. So for the second time in his career, Evan Longoria has to see the other team hoist up the World Series trophy. I mean, I know, sure, he's had a whole lot of accolades and a lot of accomplishments and a whole lot of simoleons, but I'm sure the one thing that every baseball player wants is to be on that team, hoisting that trophy, not on the team, watching the other team hoist the trophy. So, bit of a sobering week for Evan Longoria, watching the other team again hoist the World Trophy, and that's my final thought.
My final thought's going to go to hockey, and we're going to talk about the three teams still with zeros on their record. Vegas, the reigning Stanley Cup champs, 9-0-1, 19 points out of 20. Great start to the season. The Boston Bruins, 8-0-1, starting another great start to the season after a record-breaking campaign last year. And, of course, we have to talk about the big surprise zero, the San Jose Sharks, 0 wins through the first 9 games. I'm not sad, but it hurts in my soul just a little bit to see my Sharks going winless. Yeah, Sharks winless through 9. And let's see. Tonight they play the Vancouver Canucks, who are 6-2-1 for the opportunity to win their first game of this season. So the Sharks fully in tank mode for the number 1 overall pick, and knowing the NHL, the lottery will not go our way. It will end up with like pick number 3 or something, and I'll be even more sad then.
Well, you know why the Boston Bruins are doing bad. They picked Marchand as their captain, so it's the Marchand curse.
Yeah. But I do want to thank Zach for his wedding. He did get married. He gave me my big dumb face on a bottle opener, which is kind of cool. Yeah, big dumb face. And congratulations to him and his new wife, Jen. Yeah, it was a fun week. And back to normal this week. A couple weeks in rally, and then I'm actually off to Buffalo for the Buffalo Bills Jets game on the 18th, 19th.
Hopefully, we won't be hearing about Ryan injuring any elbows or anything jumping through table.
I can neither confirm nor deny that table jumping plans are in the works. I don't know if it will be me or someone else in my party, but jumping through a table has been discussed. We just have to figure out how and who and why and why. But yeah, there might be a couple little variations to our normal schedule in the next couple of weeks between that and Thanksgiving coming up in a few weeks. Since I clearly am still struggling to breathe at times, I think we're going to wrap this one up. I am Flying Ryan Ryan, go Christian Long.
Well, the Tampa Motor Mouth Joel Rowan.